Hello everyone, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackle. I'm joined here with Vicki Rad. She's the Director of our Planning and Economic Development. And what we're doing today is kind of announcing a program that we've got out there for small businesses. In Macomb County, we've got some CARES funding. I think people recognize that $152.5 million was awarded to Macomb County to help us deal with some of the issues in light of the coronavirus concern that kind of hit us pretty hard here in Macomb County and throughout the state as well. But with that being said, we've tried to earmark some of that money, and about $70 million of that money we decided we need to do something for our small businesses here in Macomb County. Now, technically, a small business is identified as somebody who has, or a business that has, less than 500 employees. So we're going to be doing this in phases. The $70 million we've earmarked, and today we're announcing the first phase and what we need to do. And if you're a small business and you happen to have 49 or less people working in your building or for your company, this is for you. This is a great opportunity. We're looking at awarding grants of up to $5,000 grant. And again, this is not a loan, it's a grant. But again, there's certain things you need to kind of, if you will, forms to fill out and kind of a document to sign that Vicki is going to talk about very shortly here. So there's 3 phases to this. We are now in phase 1. And as you can see, when you go to macombgov.org, you click on this icon, Macomb County Cares for Small Businesses, the Sustainability Program. When you click on that, you're going to be able to get the documents that you need to fill out. Very small, it's simple, it's not that difficult, and we're going to try to roll out that $5,000 to each one of the businesses. We know it's not going to solve all the business problems here, and each and every company has different concerns, but now we were able to get this money from the federal government. We want to get it into the hands of small businesses to help them through the challenge they have. So with that, I'm going to allow Vicki to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about phase 1 of the program itself.
Sure, thank you, Mark. So, as Mark mentioned, the big rollout, the big program is Macomb County Cares for Small Business. One aspect of phase 1 is recovery. We are looking at getting money out to our businesses. We know you're hurting right now, so we want to get those $5,000 checks out there. There is an application, so you'll click on the link and get to the application. There are 3 things that you'll be submitting with your application. You'll be submitting a W-9, so just be prepared for that. You'll be signing an affidavit and provide that through the upload link. And then the third document is a utility bill. Those are the 3 items that you will have to provide in order to be eligible for the grant. When we look at the types of businesses, Mark mentioned it, we've got a lot of small businesses in Macomb County. They are the heart of Macomb County. About 95% of our businesses do fall under that 49 employee or less threshold. So we want to make sure that we prioritize you. And part of that is having a physical location in Macomb County, and that 49 or employee less criteria is very important. When you go to apply, it's important that you read the FAQs. We know we're going to get a lot of questions coming in through the website. Take a look at the FAQs, and if you can't find your answer, you can reach out to us specifically for that.
And with that, people wonder, what about the affidavit? We're fortunate. Our finance department, along with the planning department, are going to review each one of these applications, make sure they just meet those simple criteria. The affidavit they're talking about filling out is just a way that we have the ability, if we're audited by the federal government for giving these funds out, that you're able to prove or show that you had some kind of a sustained loss as a result of the COVID crisis. So again, very simple thing for you, but again, Plant Moran is helping our finance department and planning department and making sure that we're auditing everything that comes in as well. So it's a very simple process. It's really not much effort on your behalf if you're a small business here in Macomb County to go to macombgov.org, click on that icon, and fill out the simple form that is there, as well as provide the signature of that affidavit, and we're going to be cutting you those checks. And Vicki, how soon, and I should say, how long do they have to apply, and then when do we start writing those checks?
Yes, great question. So the application opens up today, 11 a.m., so you can actually go on the website right now. The application process closes out on the 24th at 11:59.
Okay. And
about 2 weeks.
When do we start writing those checks?
Yes, so the checks roll out. We're looking at a July 1, and it will be a rolling batch. We anticipate $20 million going out in $5,000 grants. So about 4,000 recipients for these checks. So we're looking at rolling that out in batches starting July 1.
And we're going to be looking at, if you happen to own a couple different businesses, a couple of different restaurants, you own a couple different, hair salons, or whatever it might be, those are actually available or eligible for $5,000 grant independently. So keep that in mind. And if you happen to know somebody who's a business owner, we're trying to get this information out. Again, we have the money available because we got it from the federal government to get to these small businesses. So if you're applying, that's great. But if you happen to know another small business, please share this information with them and have them go to the line. There's really no catch to this. This is actually for the first time, trust us, we're the government. government. We're actually going to put money in your hands because we realize the challenge that you've faced. And so, again, I can't thank enough the business partners we've had here in Macomb County, the work that we've kind of been doing with them. They're an important part of what goes on with Macomb County and our economy, and they've been there every step of the way during this crisis. Even when we had to do the closing of essential versus non-essential, they got it, they did what they needed to do. Now with all the CDC guidelines and governor's executive orders, as they're starting to come back, we're starting to see that every one of them are in compliance and every one of them are trying to be part of the solution moving forward. So we know that there's been an incredible impact that they've had as far as the financial situation here, and that's why we earmarked $70 million of the $152 million specifically for our small businesses here in Macomb County, because we want to get them going. We've already got them going with the PPEs. We got to we're making sure that they're getting enough PPEs, and that's available too on our website, macombgov.org. They can go ahead and click on it. If you still need a PPE for your business or your company, please sign up. We'll get that to you as well. So, and speaking of our small businesses, we are doing something with them to try to make sure they're part of the solution moving forward, and you've got some kind of a committee that you're working with as well.
Correct. So part of phase one, we also stood up a economic recovery task force. We've reached out to some pretty significant community leaders that represent specific industries. We have somebody who represents the restaurants, the hospitality. We have someone on the task force that represents our manufacturers. Phase two of that $70 million is really looking at it strategically, trying to determine what are our businesses currently going through based on their industry. And rather than producing a grant to get them that instant infusion, we really want to be strategic in how do we help them prepare for emergency preparedness as a business. It's really important that a lot of our businesses had to learn trial by fire on how to overcome this economic crisis, so we want to prepare them for that in future waves. So we are looking at a phase two and then ultimately a phase three where we're going to reevaluate the various programs. Mark mentioned, our businesses, when we look at the small businesses, 500 and under, we will be rolling out additional programs looking at the different variants of type of businesses that are out there, whether they're profit or nonprofit.
And so we're going to be standing by. Again, we're going to be monitoring the website as those applications come in. We're going to be working through it. Our planning department has done a great job. Maria Zardis, Vicki Rad, as I mentioned. Lori Eisen has been very instrumental in trying to get this done. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their names. And all the people behind the scenes with our planning department, even John Paul Ray, one of my deputy executives, are trying to make sure that everything we do is a coordinated effort on behalf of the small businesses here in Macomb County. So if there are further questions or concerns that you have, please contact us, get a hold of us, in particular the planning department, but all the necessary information you need, and we're pretty certain about that, is going to be available on the website, macombgov.org. Just click on that icon, we'll get you what you're looking for. And as was mentioned by Vicki, if you have any other outside or incidental questions, please go to the frequently asked questions. It'll give you some indication, and or give us a call direct. Again, operator standing by. We're going to be there to try to figure out how we assist you because we understand how important you are to Macomb County. So any final last words there?
Yeah, this is taking a chaos, for example, and turning it into an opportunity. So we really look at this as a way for us to help our businesses not only overcome what they're currently experiencing, but what does this look like 6 or 12 months from now, and how do we help them overcome? So it's a great program. We're thankful for the CARES Act dollars. We're thankful that we can actually get this money out to our businesses. And thus the reason we put it out there is Macomb County cares for small businesses here in Macomb County. So with that, we're going to open up. I think we have some questions from media personalities that are here. If you have any, we'll entertain those questions. And there are no questions. We did a remarkable job. What you're hearing from the small businesses, we're already telling you how this will help them. It's going to be helpful. Again, it's not going to sustain, all their, economic challenges. It's not going to make them whole, but at least to get some of those small businesses that are right there on the edge, trying to figure out how do they make the rent, how do they pay some of the utility bills, even some of the issues with, some of the workers, how do they pay those bills, and what can we do? So we figure $5,000 grant is a great opportunity to get it in their hands, to let them figure out how they want to use that to kind of help them through this process. So it doesn't make them whole. We understand that, but it is something, and it is helpful. As we mentioned, we've earmarked $70 million out of $152 million for the small business. And what we're hearing a lot of is, early on, how do we get PPEs? We've tried to figure out how to resolve that problem. We're doing that. And now, how do we get a little bit of help financially? We're doing that as well. And you got some businesses that are still saying, when can I open? Obviously, the biggest thing is the fitness centers, and I couldn't agree with them more. We're opening up restaurants, we're opening up hair salons. Fitness centers want to be part of the solution, and that's the key. It's not that any of our businesses wanted to open up and just go back to the way things were. Our businesses here were very responsible and responded immediately, but also in this process of opening up,
every one of them has been responsible to figure out how do I follow CDC guidelines, protect myself, protect my employees, and protect the patrons that want to come in our facilities. They have been part of the solution and will continue to be so. And I trust even those fitness centers here in Macomb County, the gyms, want to be part of the solution as well if given the chance. They just need to know when.
How did you wrangle the cash? Was it a big, difficult process, or how did that happen?
How did we get the cash?
Yeah.
No, actually, it was interesting. There was four municipalities in the state of Michigan that received the funding. It was Kent County, I believe it was Kent County, if I'm not mistaken. Kent County, Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, and the city of Detroit. It was population based, so the money we got, because we're a population of 500,000 or more, we got that money, and basically they actually wrote a check and sent it over, and we deposited it with the treasurer, and through an appropriations process, an amendment to the budget itself, we were able to get that money set aside for these businesses. And we brought in Plant Moran to help us with an auditing to make sure everything we're doing coincides with the requirements of the grant itself. So, we were very fortunate. It was one of those promises made by the federal government and promises kept. And with that being said, we're going to make sure as soon as we can get that money out there with a responsible way of monitoring it, we're doing that. And that's what we're here today, rolling out phase 1 for.
Appreciating nobody really knows the answer, but moving forward as businesses open, 50% capacity, et cetera. I'm curious what you're hearing from business owners about how deep the hole is over the past 3 months, how tight it is. The state, for example, had 1 in 7, I believe, businesses may not make it. Just wondering what you're hearing in regard to, how difficult to climb out this may be.
Yeah, mostly small business we are hearing from, and I hear it on a daily basis, whether it's emails to the office, phone calls, or even direct contact with myself, from being out and about in the community, and or even some phones, some people calling me, wanting to know, what are we going to do, what does it take, how do we get back up and running, and many of them are saying we're probably going to fall by the wayside, we're probably not going to be able to sustain ourselves, and it's a difficulty. I mean, obviously nobody predicted this, it's a challenge, but we got to figure out, as we start to see this pandemic lessen as far as the numbers, there's no question, we're just, in fact, we're in that phase right now where by the end of this month, we will be phasing out of state of emergency. State of emergency is basically a bypass process of, if you will, government function. So in other words, bypassing legislature because you've got an emergency. And how do you get to a position where it's no longer the chaotic thing, but you've got a control over it? And we do. If you start looking at our numbers, you think about where we're at today, we were averaging over 200 cases a day, and now less than 15. We were averaging 33 deaths a day, and now less than 1 per day. The percentage of people, almost 46% of the population that was tested was testing positive in Macomb County alone, and now we're less than 3% of the population. So and again, we didn't have, the hospitals weren't geared up, we didn't have PPEs. I mean, there was without question a need for an emergency order to get this thing up and running. We've been able to do that, we've been able to contain that, get the numbers down, and now moving forward, we're going to continue to monitor if there's any uptick or any resurgence of this particular virus or concern, working with our health department, health officials, and we're comfortable knowing we can do that. So it's no longer a state of emergency, it still is a state of concern, whether it's Macomb County or throughout the entire state, and we're going to monitor that. But the biggest problem right now is that other concern we have with the economic crisis. And a lot of these businesses are suffering as a result of it. This is something we can do because of the funding we got from the federal government to help some of them at least get through this, and hopefully they don't have to shutter or close their doors when they're given a chance to open back up. So yeah, there's a lot of businesses out there very concerned, and some may not make it. And we're going to try everything we can with our planning department and Vicki to engage them, work with them to find out ways we can, and we encourage them to get a hold of us. We want to be a partner with them and try to keep them in business if we can.
Yeah, and if I can follow up to that particular question, a lot of our businesses had to get really creative over the past couple months on how they operate. It's not business as usual. And so part of phase 2 is looking at, perhaps maybe they don't have an online presence, especially if they're doing carry-out orders. I was looking at a restaurant, I was trying to find their menu and I couldn't find it online. So is there a way for us to repurpose some of those dollars to get that online presence so they have a really strong e-commerce space? Because it's not business as usual. And we'll help them figure that out, but it's also really thinking strategically on what do they need to get beyond the first initial hurdle, and then what can we do to keep them going.
The other follow-up I would have is there is disposable income out there. People have been kind of sheltering in place, but the acid test really is people's comfort in going out and visiting the restaurant, etc. And I don't know what either of you may add in regard to, as we're opening back up, the burden on businesses and the importance on making sure people are comfortable coming to your establishment?
Yeah, that's a very good question about people's comfort level about going back if a business does open, no matter what business, hair salon, if it happens to be a restaurant, if there's something that is opening, it's about the comfort level. Some people still may not want to go out because, they got an underlying health issue, or because, their age is kind of in that category where they're more susceptible, or they just don't feel comfortable. They're still worried or nervous. I would suggest they stay home, then don't do it. Don't go out. But there are people that are very much at the mode of saying, you know what, we understand the numbers are down. There's that risk factor that may come into play. They're willing to take that risk to go to these restaurants, but understanding that they're going to adhere to CDC guidelines and social distancing, wearing the masks and all that. So allow the businesses to open in a very responsible way so we can keep this economic situation going here, because it is a crisis. Let's be real. You got two crises going at once, and you can't just continue to say until there's a vaccine, we can't have anything going on in the economy. I don't think anybody believes that. But I go back to if a business doesn't feel comfortable opening, because they still too are concerned about the community spread or the virus still being in and around the area, they don't have to open their doors either. It doesn't require them to open just because they've been allowed to open, but they have the ability to do so. And I say, you know what, it's well past that time. It's without question a need for us to get back to try to figure out how do we get the economy moving again, because we certainly don't want to see more businesses fall by the wayside. So people are going to decide what their own comfort levels are during this reopening, I guess, if you will, of the economy.
And we're going to promote shop local. Shop your local small businesses, because they really do need you. We just recently had a really successful campaign with the Macomb is Open. Definitely trying to get the word out there to patronize your local businesses and keep them moving.
No other questions? Okay, once again, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Facebook Live. Again, please sign up macombgov.org. Click on the icon to kind of get support from us on the financial end, as well as PPEs. And again, we want to remind you, Macomb County cares for small businesses. Thank you for joining us.